Hi guys, if you don't know me, my name is Bree Cheyenne. I talk about all types of unsolved murders, that's not a word, unsolved murders, mysteries, crimes, all that type of stuff. I almost want to say welcome back to my channel, but I can almost guarantee that you're not welcoming back to my channel, considering I only uploaded one video when I was supposed to probably have uploaded like 5 by now. But I'm a flop, but I'm gonna try to be more consistent. So okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and jump into the video because we like short, sweet intros over here, so I'm not gonna keep you guys too long. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right into the video. So this video is going to be about the murder of John Price by his girlfriend, Katherine Knight. This one's real crazy, y'all, actually. Like, when I was reading, I was like, oh, there were so many red flags with this chick, but you'll see when I get into the story. So to start off, a little bit about Katherine's childhood. Her mother, whose name was Barbara, she was married to a man named Jack Ruffin, and together they ended up having 4 sons. They lived in Aberdeen in New South Wales, Hunter Valley. Now, while Barbara was married to Jack, she ended up having an affair with a man named Ken Knight. Now, this was real. She was loving the crew. This was real trifling because actually, Ken Knight was not only a co-worker of her husband's, but he was also a friend of the family. Now, because of the town that they lived in, it wasn't a very big town, so the affair ended up being pretty widespread, and because of that, it kind of caused like a major scandal within the town. And due to that, Barbara and Ken ended up moving away from all the drama and stuff that they had to deal with. Now, when they moved away, out of the 4 sons, the 2 older ones ended up staying with Jack, and the 2 younger ones ended up moving in with an aunt that lived in Sydney at the time. When they moved, Barbara and Ken ended up moving to Moree. While they were together, they ended up having a few kids, 2 of them being 2 twin girls, the youngest of them being Katherine Knight. They were born on I meant to say October 24th. October 25th, 1955. Not too long after Katherine and her twin sister were born, 1959, when Katherine was 4, her father actually ended up passing away, and so the 2 sons that were living with Jack at the time, they ended up moving in with Barbara. Now, Barbara and Ken didn't exactly have the best relationship. Ken was actually a really violent alcoholic. He would sexually assault his wife multiple times a day. And what's really disturbing about it is that Barbara would actually tell her kids about it. On one occasion specifically, which is really disturbing, Katherine had told her mother, Barbara, about an incident with a boy where he was trying to make her do something sexually that she wasn't trying to do. And Barbara had told her basically, you know, just put up with it and stop complaining. Like, what type of stuff is that to say to somebody, and your daughter especially? You know, this doesn't surprise me, especially how Barbara, the type of, I don't even want to say values because I feel like that's a bad word to use for it, but I don't know, the thoughts that she put in like Katherine and I'm sure her other kids' mind with her being sexually assaulted and how she was dealing with it and telling her kids, and how she told Katherine to just like put up with it and stop complaining. It doesn't surprise me that Katherine was sexually assaulted by multiple family members, although not her father, up until the point where she was 11 years old. Although there were some minor doubts about the incidents that she gave, it was pretty much confirmed to be true because her family did confirm that it did happen, which doesn't surprise me with the attitude that her mother was giving toward sexual assault. Eventually in 1969, Katherine, one of the only few family members she was actually close to, her uncle named Oscar, he ended up committing suicide again in 1969. And during that same year, Katherine and her mother and the rest of her family, they all ended up moving back to Aberdeen, which was the town where everything originally started in. She's 14 years old, so she's starting high school. And in high school, she was kind of described as being a loner and a bully. At least one incident, she had injured another boy with a weapon. Another incident, she had actually injured a teacher, but it was subsequently found out that the teacher was actually acting in self-defense, and that's why Katherine got injured. So on the contrary, though, when she was not such an enraged person, she was actually pretty much a model student. She actually ended up leaving school at 15. She still didn't even know how to read or write at this time. She became a cutter in a clothing factory. Now, she worked at this job for a little bit of time, but eventually about 12 months later, she became an offal cutter at an abattoir. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I think that's how it's pronounced. We're gonna go with it. That's how I'm gonna say it from now on. She became an offal cutter at an abattoir, which she described as her dream job, which is really weird. If you guys don't know what an offal cutter is, I'm going to insert that. I'm going to insert that. presumably because this was her dream job, she was like excelling at it, and because she was doing so well, she was actually very quickly promoted, and because of this, she was actually given her own set of knives. And creepily enough, this creepy ass motherfucker kept a set of knives above her bed that she just kept there, just like, you know, just in case, like maybe I just might need it someday. And that's a foreshadow. So now we're going to go ahead and jump a little bit into a few of her past relationships, just kind of build and establish a history of kind of who Katherine Knight was, just so you guys can see by the time we get to like the end part, the murder, you're going to be like, am I surprised? No, not really. So one of her first relationships was with a man named, you know what's crazy? Y'all are gonna see, she had a relationship with a man named David, then John, then John. First relationship was with a man named David Kellett. Now David Kellett was he was also a raging alcoholic, much like her father, but that was due to some incidences that he actually experienced when he was like younger and stuff. When, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say younger, but just some incidents that he had experienced. He had saw his best friend get killed in front of him in some railroad accident, and then he also saw a train hit a school bus that killed a bunch of children. So due to that stuff, he was kind of like a heavy drinker. But when he had actually met Katherine. They went to the same high school, and he ended up meeting Katherine, and he ended up finding that she was also an alcoholic that also liked to fight. So at times he would be getting into fights, and then she would be jumping and swinging in front of him. He was like, oh, that's my ride or die. It's like, no. But yeah, basically maybe they ended up connecting over that. I don't know, but they started dating, if you guys didn't gather that. Like I said, past relationships. Yeah, while they were dating in 1974, Katherine had actually convinced David to marry her while they were, I don't know, she was intoxicated, he was definitely intoxicated. While he was heavily intoxicated, she had convinced him to marry her, and to which he agreed because he was heavily intoxicated. And I'm sure he actually really grew to regret, which you'll find out why, because I'm about to say. On their wedding night, this is a quote from David, that he said that Katherine's mom had told him the night of their wedding. She said, the old girl, he's talking about Katherine's mother, said to me to watch out. You better watch this one or she'll fucking kill you. Stir her up the wrong way or do the wrong thing, you're fucked. Don't ever think about playing up with her, meaning cheating on her. She'll fucking kill you. And that was her mother talking. She told me she's got something loose. She's got a loose screw somewhere. She told him that on the night of the wedding. And let me tell y'all, the night of their wedding, after they had sexual relations a few times, she ended up strangling him that night because she just felt like he was just too prematurely exhausted after having, she was like, a mere 3 rounds? I don't think so. And she strangled him. Even crazier, on another incident, she had actually burned all of his clothes. And when he had got home, she had hit him upside the head with the frying pan because he was out later than usual, later than she had liked him to be, for a darting competition that he had actually advanced to the finals for. After this, he ended up like fleeing for his life because he like, oh no, this bitch crazy. And during this time, while he was like fleeing and stuff, he ended up collapsing on a neighbor's yard, and he was eventually taken to the hospital where he was treated for a severely fractured skull. Overall, the couple stayed together for about 10 years, and over the course of the relationship, they ended up having 2 daughters together. After they split, Katherine, she went through a few different things. I'm not going to get into it all, but it was many things. She spent some stints in a psychiatric hospital a few times. At one point, she had threatened the life of a mechanic that had served David's car because she had claimed that it was his service that allowed him to ride out on her. So on to the next. Not too long after she had spent a few months in the psychiatric hospital, she ends up meeting a man named David Saunders. Now, the relationship with David Saunders, it kind of moved relatively quickly. They ended up moving it together like really fast within a few months of the time they were actually together. But the thing that Katherine didn't like is the fact that David had actually kept his own apartment, even though they were living together. Now, there was a lot of crazy stuff that went on with them, but I think you guys kind of see the pattern that this bitch is crazy. So I'm going to just tell y'all a couple things. One of the things that happened between their relationship is that she had actually slit the neck of his 2-month-old puppy for no other reason, just to show her that, like, if you have an affair with me, like, I'm not the one to be played with. Like, heartless. Eventually, they also had a daughter together 1 year into the relationship, I believe. But not too long after that, David ended up leaving her because he was like, this bitch crazy. He realized that after she had stabbed him with a pair of scissors. She had a problem with, she always stabbing somebody with a pair of scissors, y'all. After she had the relationship with David Saunders, she ends up dating a man named John Chillingworth. That sounds like such a movie stereotypical type name, you know what I mean? So this is going to be pretty short, just like David Saunders. There wasn't too much to tell about the relationship here, actually. She had dated John for about 3 years. Together they had a son named Eric. That was actually Catherine's first son, but the relationship didn't last because presumably, I'm gonna say the relationship was really without much issue, nothing like her other relationships, but that was probably due to the fact that she was actually having an affair with a man named John Price while she was dating John. Now this is where the story turns into the murder. So Katherine ends up leaving John Chillingworth for John Price. Now John Price was pretty much liked by everyone he knew. He had 3 kids of his own, and his own marriage had ended in 1998. For a few months at least, their relationship was pretty much seemingly without issue. The issue started to arise actually when Katherine wanted to she was trying to trap him just like she did David. She wanted to marry him, but John was like not trying to marry her, and that's when she became really aggressive, violent, like her normal self. So when he refused to marry her, she ended up giving him fire from his job. Due to this, John ended up kicking her out, and that's when the relationship had ended. Now John's kids did like her pretty much for the most part. I don't get why. She was probably lying, fake or whatever. But yeah, she eventually ended up kicking her out because she got him fired from his job, and the relationship was ended for a few months. But after that, John did end up going back to Katherine, but at this time, he still didn't want to marry her, and he still wouldn't allow her to move in. Now, fast forward to February 2000, a series of arguments between John and Katherine had culminated in an event where Katherine had ended up stabbing John with a pair of scissors. On February 29th, John ended up taking out a restraining order on Katherine for himself, but especially because he didn't feel that his kids were safe around her, really. He even told his co-worker that if he ever goes missing, it's because Katherine had killed him. So on the day of the murder, John had came on. He had checked in with his neighbors like he always does, and then he ended up going to sleep. Katherine was not home at the time, and John ended up finding out that she had actually sent the kids away to have a sleepover at their friend's place. While John is sleeping, Katherine ends up coming home. And during this time, she comes home, she makes herself dinner, watches some TV, and she takes a shower, and then she goes upstairs and wakes John up. At this point, she wants to have sexual relations. So they have sexual relations, and then after that, John ends up going back to sleep. While John is asleep, Katherine, she goes for the knives above her bed, the one she always kept there as a just in case, and she starts stabbing John. Now, blood evidence shows that while Katherine was actually stabbing John, he had woke up during it, and he had tried to escape, but eventually he was pulled back in. Overall, he was stabbed 37 times. And then after he had eventually succumbed to his injuries and died, Katherine had actually skinned him, hung his body from a meat hanger that they had inside the living room, and it cut his body up into little pieces. She also decapitated him, and forgive me for looking down, I don't remember all the ingredients she had, but if you see me looking down, it's because I'm naming this dish. So with the body parts that she had chopped up with him, she had ended up making a dish made out of potato, pumpkin, beets, zucchini, cabbage, squash, and gravy. That don't even sound good, honestly. Like, that just sounds like a whole bunch of mix of nothing. After Katherine had cooked the meal, she took a bunch of pills, and she had passed out next to, I guess, whatever was left of his body in the living room or wherever she was. Whatever was left of his body, she was laying next to, or at least from what I read. They said next to his body, but she also cut him up, so I really don't know what she was laying next to. She also left a handwritten note on a photograph on top of John that read again. Little John is John's son and Beck is his daughter. These allegations were found to have really no grounds at all. She was probably just trying to make it seem like, yeah, I killed him because da 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 da, but no, we all know you were crazy. The next morning after the murder had occurred, his co-workers had actually heeded his advice when he didn't show up to work that next day, and they ended up calling the police. When the police arrived, obviously they had found the crime scene and they had detained Katherine when she had awoken. At the time they detained her, she had said that she had no recollection of the night at all. They had eventually went into the kitchen where they found John's head boiling in the pot of vegetables. And even weird enough, she had 2 plates sitting on the table and each one had a name tag with each of John's kids, meaning like she was trying to get them to eat their father. And even nasty enough, as if I haven't said enough, in the backyard they had found a discarded plate that was like thrown out or whatever. And it's speculated, and I believe it too, it was speculated that she basically had made a plate for herself and she had tried to eat her boyfriend and was like, oh no, that's nasty, and so she threw it out. And so eventually during the trial, she initially entered a plea of not guilty, but a day after the trial had commenced, she had changed her plea to guilty, and she was actually sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which is actually the first time a woman in Australia had received that sentence. Crazy. And yeah, she is currently still incarcerated and she ain't never getting out. Hopefully you guys liked that video. I read a thing on Reddit today that was like, I hate when people tell me to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. So I'm gonna not do that anymore. I'm gonna keep the outro short too. This was Bree Cheyenne. Hopefully you liked the video. I already said that, but bye.